No one. Yeah, goddamn right. And I can't argue with these brothers.
President Biden made that colorful remark back in September when touring hurricane damage down in Florida. And after last night's earlier than expected call for Raphael Warnock in the Georgia Senate runoff, he was probably thinking it again. In fact, Joe Biden is the only Democratic president to hold the Senate since JFK in '62, and Democrats actually gained a seat this year. So why do we, and collectively, put the media, both conservative and even liberal media, in the same bucket, or us here in the center of the road media? Why do we keep underestimating Joe Biden? Members of the media, his fellow politicians, even many of the people who elected him back in 2020. It's a guy who worked his way up from a blue-collar roots, survived 4 decades in the Senate, that's not hard, became vice president, where he was instrumental in passing then-President Obama's signature health care law, and in 2020 received 0 votes out of the critical first-in-the-nation primary state of New Hampshire, only to go on to clinch the party's nomination. Max Burns had the same question. Here's a recent post from him called Joe Biden's Very FDR Christmas. Why does the media keep underestimating Joe Biden? Max is with us now. Good to see you. I will let you, sir, answer your own question.
Well, I think Joe Biden is hurt in a sense because he's not bombastic in an era that really rewards these larger-than-life characters. You have the Donald Trumps, even the Barack Obamas, who are showmen at heart. But here, Joe Biden now stands alongside FDR as the second president in history to not lose a single Senate seat in his midterm, and has passed more legislation, and honestly more bipartisan legislation, than any president in modern history. But you certainly wouldn't know that, in part because the White House hasn't really made a big deal out of it. And
well, they've tried to. Just every time they do one of their events where they try to make a big deal out of it, he says something off camera or off mic or whatever that turns into a gaffe.
No, that's true. There's a challenge here in that there is this built-in sort of media sense that Joe Biden is old, that he's some doddering fool who is barely able to stand up on his own. But then we look at the actual agenda. He brought Republicans into a bipartisan gun control bill for the first time in almost 40 years. I mean, he's brought bipartisan victories on infrastructure that even Barack Obama couldn't achieve. These are big wins.
Fair enough. And we said it, he did the ACA, otherwise known as Obamacare. And when it happened, everybody gave him a lot of credit for being the guy behind the scenes in the U.S. Senate pulling the strings. Take a listen.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States of America, Barack Obama.
Okay, to be honest, we just had to play the clip again. But anyway, you make the point that the voters have rewarded him in this unique way because of his track record. Then we look at what happened in Georgia. Raphael Warnock won last night. But we look at the rest of Georgia, for example. Governor, R+8. Lieutenant Governor, Republican +5. Secretary of State, Republican +9. Attorney General, R+5. Ag Commissioner, the Insurance Commissioner, the State School Superintendent, the Commissioner of Labor. The Senate is the only one that a Democrat won. Does this have more to do with the election successes, with Joe Biden being really good and people loving all of the things that you listed off? Or is it that Republicans just put up some really god-awful candidates over and over and over again, and Democrats took advantage?
Well, Democrats definitely have some state party building still to do in Georgia. But if you look at Warnock, he performed very well in districts where Joe Biden did very well and even expanded on some of Joe Biden's victories there. And when you saw Joe Biden go down and rally with Raphael Warnock, you would see in the days to follow a huge surge in early voting, in voter engagement.
But to be fair, Max, I'll give you the last word in 30 seconds. This whole time, a month before this special election, Joe Biden didn't go to Georgia. In fact, Barack Obama went to Georgia. Biden stayed away. How does that speak to this man with incredible coattails?
Well, this is part of Biden's challenge, is that he was organizing behind the scenes. He was bringing in resources into Georgia, using his pulpit to bring in people who were very effective, but again, stepped aside and let other people have the spotlight. And that's something that perhaps he should have done.
Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.